Alright everyone, you know the drill. This is part 2 of my Yakuza final boss ranking. Last time we got out of the way the absolute slop slurpers of this series, and this time we'll be going over the remainder of the milquetoast muchachos and into the cream of the crime syndicate. Like last time, every boss gets a score out of 10 in 5 categories, meaning a total score out of 50. Don't take this list too seriously, it's very stupid. Also, I have memberships now if you want to support me, it's like $1. As stated before, Yakuza 5 gets a 3. Yakuza 5 Kiryu is an oddity. Of the returning characters, he is the least hurt by the engine changes, and technically has 2 different styles. Infinite bounding throws are super important, both as wall splat setups and as a way to easily bypass knockdown immunity. He technically has knockdown combos, but Yakuza 5 sucks and we can't have nice things, so they're super limited. Dragon Spirit exists. It has some niche uses, but it's not great. Kiryu definitely functions, but I can't give him much more credit than that. 6 out of 10. Aizawa would be exceptionally prone to combos due to his slow and easily parryable attacks, but he just has to be a heavy boss, which knocks his potential down a bit. Kiryu isn't as affected by this as the other playable characters though. For a final boss, Aizawa's moveset is actually really easy to deal with, but issues arise from Yakuza 5's QTE spam that interrupts the gameplay constantly. The final arena also has no walls, which severely limits your combos on a boss that already has very limited combos. Fun fact, in the Ultimate Match version of this fight specifically, some of the invisible walls are completely broken, meaning you can do random shit like just run back up the stairs. This also kind of gives the final arena a wall, but not really. It doesn't really work. The fuck just happened? Did he come back from the dead? Does Ultimate Match Aizawa have the mandate of heaven? Maybe he could have beaten Kiryu if he invoked his Type 3 immortality. 5 out of 10. Aizawa is not very hard. He is more so a test of endurance. He is the only Yakuza 5 final boss to actually have a lot of health, not to mention the fact that he heals up right at the end. Most failed attempts are going to come from you dropping your combos due to Yakuza 5's lack of consistency, or from trying to avoid doing the same 3 things over and over again. A boss of this nature would be much better suited for a deeper game, but I think Aizawa strikes a decent balance regardless. 8 out of 10. Give me fuel, give me fire. Give me 15 Aizawa QTEs or I retire. Aizawa simultaneously has 0 aura and infinite aura. He's kind of a goober, and he's not all that difficult either, but he does have some of the rawest QTEs in the series, even if they take up a bit too much of the fight. Battle for the Dream is also a really cool song. The presentation and visual symbolism of the fight is also immaculate. Slowly dragging Aizawa away from the chairman's seat before casting him out of the building entirely and finishing in the snow-laden courtyard is amazing. Even if he is a bit of a pushover, that's kind of the point. This fight is meant to be a test for Aizawa, one which you must ultimately cause him to fail. You are the obstacle, and being that much stronger than him is proof of it. I only wish the gameplay had enough sauce to reflect that. This is where I was going to give Aizawa the title of the gay-ass Nene baby of Yakuza, but then I remembered that Kido existed, so he's safe. 7 out of 10. 29 out of 50 overall.
And he's a cool character, of course. Fucking cunt, bitch, fucking dumbass, top tier, fuck!
How is it that? 今日はやけに兄弟が生き生きとして見えるぜ。
ああ、俺にもわからねえ。お前とまた戦えると思うだけで心が躍る。待っている間に若返っちまったようだ。
後悔はなしだぜ、兄弟。
忘れちまったな、後悔なんて言葉は。
Ishin is weird. It's an odd middle ground between 5 and 0. It technically has wall splats like in Yakuza 5, but you can't utilize them for combos nearly as easily. Ishin has actually functional back combos, but they're weirdly limited compared to some other games. Ishin bosses will whip around after about 5 hits. This is not a huge deal in Wild Dance style, but other styles have to do something else. In fact, each style is going to rely on something different. Wild Dance on back combos, Brawler on splats and knockdowns, the bad Yakuza 5 version, Swordsman on guard break combos, and Gunman kinda does nothing against bosses. There's a lot going on here, but it's definitely more of a quantity over quality type thing. 6 out of 10. I like each of Ishin's styles, but they don't feel like they synergize very well. As previously stated, they all kinda do their own thing without much overlap. The power balance, while not nearly as bad as Kenzan, is still far from perfect. Brawler is somewhat gimmicky. While its invincibility granting parry is a great tool, and Tiger Drop is both as strong as ever and an actual combo tool, the main rush combo is basically useless. It's too slow to do much of anything, and aside from certain splat setups, the only time you'll be pressing the light attack button is after a stumble in Swordsman, which is one of the only true multi-style combos available to you. Swordsman is probably the best style. It has actual hit stun, guard break combos are reliable, it actually deals damage, and the multiple stumble options allow for some short combo extensions. Wild Dance is very one-dimensional, but the mobility is nice to have, and it can make for some very long combos under the right circumstances. Gunman is great at dealing with basics, but does next to nothing against bosses. Overall, a decent kit, but the lack of synergy really hurts. 7 out of 10. Takechi is half of an excellent, if a bit easy, boss, and half of a terrible, complete bullshit boss. His sword phases are really fun to fight. The Phase 1 version is a little slow and predictable, but can catch you off guard. The arena also gives you plenty of options for combos. The Phase 3 version is also very fun, while being a bit harder due to his increased speed, though the lack of walls hurts your combos a bit. You're still able to exploit his tendency to block to create openings, which doesn't make it feel too overwhelming. Phase 2, his Wild Dance phase on the other hand, is one of the worst phases ever put in a Yakuza final boss. First of all, he has a gun now, and unlike Munakata, he is not afraid to go buck wild with that thing. Additionally, he's now able to dodge out of any combos you try to do, which includes basic rush combo strings. The only opening you have in this entire phase is when he goes for this dive shot, which briefly prevents him from dodging, allowing you to knock him down or maybe land a counter. The arena is also huge, and will just stop and shoot you if you go too far from him. Max Warcry counter and bullet blocking gauntlets are basically mandatory here. Wall splats are your only other way to get damage on him, but they're not going to do all that much, and your only consistent setup is to land a grab and Warcry counter. This phase is already long as is due to forcing you to play defense the entire time, but it's also half a health bar longer than the other two if it wasn't already bad enough. It's half of a 9 out of 10 and half of a 1 out of 10, so I guess we'll meet in the middle. 5 out of 10. That damn second phase. If it wasn't for that, this fight would rank pretty high in this category. Two very well balanced phases between the gaming equivalent of a colonoscopy with a cattle prod. 4 out of 10. Assassination of Bodhisattva being one of the greatest pieces of music to ever come out of this series is doing some very heavy lifting here. As much as I hate the Wild Dance phase though, this fight is still quite cool even removed from it. Great intro and QTEs, the dynamic between Takechi and Ryoma is excellent, and the presentation of the fight is too. Ishin's gameplay is pretty cool too, even if it's not the most technical. 8 out of 10. 30 out of 50 overall.
If you watch Skibbity Toilet, like, if you follow along the story, it's pretty good. If you like stories.
This bozo let his mouse on the screen! Yakuza 1 is as bare bones as it gets. Essentially nothing in terms of combos, slow speed, no cancels, nothing. It's a bit dated, and the series would only get better from here, but it's far from some of the other games that have actively detrimental mechanics. Health is quite low overall in Yakuza 1, which is good for a game this relatively simple. 4 out of 10. As stated, this is a pure scrapfest, no combos. That said, you still have quite a few of your iconic moves right from the start. Komaki moves are nice to have, but not necessary, and you have few heat actions, but bounding throws allow you to utilize your heat. Nothing too fancy, but there are a few things here and there for you to do. 6 out of 10. Nishiki is shockingly well designed for the first final boss in the series. He's very similar in power to you, with the only real exception to that being his heat mode where he gains super armor. Unlike other instances of super armor, it's pretty easy to deal with. You can counter it or disable it completely by baiting a combo and grabbing. The only real issues here are the QTE, which is very difficult to avoid, and the fact that he is a bit faster than you. Normally, QTEs are a good thing, but Nishiki's deals damage no matter what, and is activated via his grab, which is unreactable and cannot be mashed out of. Other than that, this being a rival fight of sorts works quite well. 7 out of 10. Yakuza 1 being a bit sluggish makes this fight a bit awkward, especially with some of Nishiki's faster attacks and his super armor. Komaki moves help, but the fight is not so hard as to where they're absolutely necessary. The QTE is really the only bump here. Other than that, this is a surprisingly well-balanced fight that isn't too easy nor too hard. 9 out of 10. While the Nishiki fight is emotionally powerful in other ways, it's not really the most aura-ful. Especially with Yakuza 1 being as slow and simple as it is, there's not much cool stuff going on by design. Things like Nishiki picking up furniture are kinda just funny, and don't even get me started on that English dub. There's no dynamic intro either. I won't count that against it, as this was before they were even a thing, but it's not gonna get top marks in this category regardless. Yakuza 1 is not as focused on the pure strength of its characters as future entries, both in terms of physical strength and willpower. The scope of this encounter is much smaller than its successors, which lessens the aura factor. The Nishiki fight has a specific tone it seeks to create, which it does a good job of, and which I do appreciate. It just doesn't hit quite as hard in this category as some of its peers. 4 out of 10. Also, don't ask why this is here, but here's the end of Yakuza 1 if Yumi owned a landscaping business instead of a bar. 30 out of 50 overall.
There's no reason for me to live! No reason at all!
Would you look at that? Despite how much I shat on Yakuza 5, it actually managed to break into the upper B tier. Game still sucks though. 3 out of 10. Shinada is the best part of Yakuza 5, both narratively and in terms of gameplay. He actually leans into Yakuza 5's unique gameplay systems and has some cool tech with his weapons and tackle and such. He easily has the most versatile wall splats and plenty of heat actions to boot. He's still not quite as fluid and in-depth as some of the other characters and styles in this series, but I appreciate his more technical aspects if for nothing else other than the fact that he feels like he was made to be a Yakuza 5 character. 7 out of 10. Baba doesn't have anywhere near the same level of bullshit as the rest of the Yakuza 5 final bosses. No knockdown immunity, at least when he doesn't have heat, no wall splat immunity, an actual wall to do combos on. It's nice to have. He does unfortunately have the same problems of low health and intrusive QTEs as Majima, but the ability to do actual combos and the fact that you're not dishing out Saejima damage soften the blow. He's also not nearly as much of a pushover. 7 out of 10. Baba sits at a very nice spot difficulty-wise. I think he can be a bit difficult due to his speed and Shinada's lack thereof if you don't know the combo routes. But taking the time to learn the latter's strengths and the former's weaknesses helps a lot and feels surprisingly rewarding for Yakuza 5. A very solid score in this category. 8 out of 10. Unfortunately, Baba is kind of in the same spot as Kido when it comes to aura, in that he is so pitiful as a character that he actively sucks the aura out of any place that he's in. That said, he has an actual fighting style which looks pretty cool, and you can't deny the inherent aura in being able to make sonic booms with your bare hands. On the other hand, Shinada has an abundance of aura, and you can feel it when you start to do well. Baba's somewhat unorthodox style, compared with Shinada's very unrefined one, leads to some very interesting fight choreography that you don't really get anywhere else. No intro really hurts, and Mutual Fist is kinda just okay. Far from a heavy hitter in this category, but it does have some stuff in its favor. 6 out of 10. 31 out of 50 overall.
My power level. It's overflowing! Ah! Ah!
As stated, 5 out of 10. Kiryu is already a lot better off than Majima, both because his styles are a bit more balanced, and because he has access to quick change clothes. Kiryu can use a much larger percentage of his kit, especially when it comes to bosses with knockdown immunity where you can actually throw some finishers into the mix. Some degree of combo loops are possible as well on normal bosses due to a quirk with how Kiryu's parry works. He's not perfect, obviously. Beast is still slow and rather difficult to use, and Dragon being locked behind opening the menu is still a horrible decision that makes it extremely difficult to slot into combos. Kiryu not having a guaranteed opener like Majima does with his Slugger attack also makes his combos less consistent. Still, Kiryu's styles aren't nearly as gimmicky and generally just feel better. 8 out of 10. Shibusawa is amazing, for about 1.5 health bars. His rush phase is both really great and really challenging due to his blazing fast attacks that can easily end your run at a moment's notice. You can learn his attack timings to make for some pretty consistent parries though that can open him up for damage. Potentially very crazy damage due to Zero's very easy loops. Rush Shibusawa also does not have knockdown immunity, making him vulnerable to parry loops and knockdowns. All of that goes down the drain when you get to phase 2. Beast Shibusawa has full super armor for all of his attacks. Even when he's not attacking, he has Yakuza 0's trademark fake super armor, where enemies will take hit stun for exactly 1 hit before armoring through everything else. Combos in this phase are basically impossible, but it's not exactly difficult. Dragon Shibusawa, on the other hand, he's got the same fake super armor in this phase, but now he's actually dangerous. You can't stay up close and counter him anymore because of his unreactable run-ending grab that he whips out at complete random. There are no walls in this arena either, so no bounding throw wall bound shenanigans here. Doing the math, 30% of the fight is a 10 out of 10, another 30% is a 4 out of 10, and 40% is a 2 out of 10. That averages out to exactly a 5. I wouldn't say Shibusawa is that hard. Rush phase is challenging in a good way, Beast phase is easy in a bad way, and Dragon phase is also not very difficult but has one little bullshit move that makes it really annoying. That sounds like a 6 to me. If Shibusawa was actually an interesting character at all, this fight would be getting at least an 8 in the aura category. Even with parts of the fight being as unfun as they are, it's still kinda fun to watch, and at least the rush phase is fun to play. The entire idea of the final boss employing his own version of your styles is a very fresh idea, even if Kuwana basically does the same thing but better a few games down the line. The intro and QTEs are rad, and hot take, Two Dragons is at worst in the upper half of final boss themes in this franchise. I see people call it bland and boring, but that's only because Shibusawa is bland and boring. I don't want to see any Two Dragons slander in the comments, alright? Or you can expect me to call you a poo-poo head. 7 out of 10. 31 out of 50 overall.
Aura farming, I know what an aura is. Everybody has got a certain aura around them, but I don't know how you farm it.
Virtual boy.
Gaiden is like Lost Judgment if it was bad. This is the first game to have artificially limited juggles. Any form of stun or ground combo is completely gone too. The only thing there is to do in this game is re-juggle combos, which only work if the boss has a roll get-up. This is not RGG's worst war crime in their crusade against any type of advanced play, but it is surely an omen of things to come. 4 out of 10. To Gaiden's credit, unlike some games, it does have things. It's not a completely worthless game, just a mostly worthless one. This is the single most heat-reliant game in the series, which also has some of the slowest heat gain. Contrary to how food generally works, if you don't have heat, you're cooked. Agent has a total of 3 consistently useful moves, 2 of which are locked behind extreme heat, and that third one is only useful when used in tandem with one of the extreme heat attacks. Yakuza style is incapable of juggling on its own due to all of its launchers coming out slower than it takes for me to download Legend Remix Gaiden from Nexus Mods. Don't even think about scrapping because every move in this game just does fuck all. Not counting launchers, the only attacks in this game to deal more than 0.3 frames of hit stun are the rocket boots, the Yakuza light running attack, and Komaki fucking knockback. If you have a sufficient amount of heat and are fighting a boss with a roll get-up, then admittedly, there is some cool stuff that you can do. Yakuza has quite a few rejuggle setups, and Agent can also easily maintain them with its heavy dodge counter and EX2S. There's still not that much you can do with such a limited combat system and with one mediocre and one bad style, the latter of which becomes even more limited in extreme heat due to losing its rush combo, 3 out of 10. Now, despite how frustrating of a game Gaiden is, Shishido is actually a very well-made boss. He's a roller, for one, which means rejuggles are possible, but he's a special kind of roller. He has a get-up attack which he will perform every other time he lands from a juggle. You can still continue a rejuggle by doing the Agent dodge counter, but this get-up attack forces you to keep track of what repetition you're on. He has this in both of his movesets, but the unarmed get-up attack can be a little weird due to how far he moves. I find his sword moveset to be more predictable, especially with how some of his attacks rubber band super hard in his unarmed phase, as well as him having some very fast attacks like the flying knee. The arenas in his sword phase are generally better too. They're bigger, which is nice when considering just how aggressive Shishido is, but I find the phase 2 arena to be especially weird, both due to it being the smallest one by far and having some really weird corners. All of the furniture in the phase 3 arena, which serves as a free heat refill, is nice to have as well. Overall, a very well-designed boss who deserves better than this game. 9 out of 10. Unlike some of the other well-designed bosses on this list, where most of your failed attempts will come from your own mistakes, Gaiden's own game design will also be a limiting factor. You gotta work hard for those big damaging combos, because the game is actively trying to sabotage them. And considering how much health Shishido has at a staggering 12 health bars, that either means you take the lame route and upgrade your attack, or the sadistic route where you prepare for an 8-hour shift at the playing the game that fucking hates you factory. Having both the Indra's amulet and some kind of armor that lets you block blades equipped is also basically mandatory if you want any kind of chance at winning. 6 out of 10. Despite how I feel about Gaiden's combat system, some of the stuff you can do is kinda cool. Not that it would matter because Shishido is literally the #1 aura farmer in this entire franchise. This man survives a fall into an unsupervised bottomless pit, shows back up like nothing happened, gets stabbed in the hand and shrugs it off, holds out against Majima and Saejima at the same time, thugs out a direct kick from Kiryu with the knife still in his hand, and still takes the time to give a badass speech to rally the entirety of the now dissolved Omi Alliance. That's not even counting the fight itself, which has its own share of badassery. I gotta give this guy top marks just on principle. 10 out of 10. 32 out of 50 overall.
Feeling like I'm the only one with no balls here.
きっちり体で教えてやるぜ。
行くぞキリュ
As stated, 8 out of 10. Kiryu is heavily nerfed from his Yakuza 3 appearance due to the engine changes. Knockdown combos are severely limited due to the calming towel no longer working, and the mini hit reaction changes. He's otherwise quite similar to his Yakuza 3 rendition, but the changes hurt. 7 out of 10. Daigo has a really nice and interesting moveset that feels great to go up against. Combined with a wall and 2 great pseudo corners, this seems like a top tier fight on the surface. But what prevents Daigo from reaching true greatness is the fact that he has the worst heat mode system out of all of the Yakuza 4 final bosses that have one. His first heat stage gives him knockdown immunity, which is very difficult for Kiryu to deal with in this game, as many of his tools for dealing with knockdown immunity were removed between 3 and 4. As if that's not bad enough, his second heat stage gives him permanent super armor. The more I look back, the more I realize how asinine decisions like this are nothing new for this studio. Come Yakuza 9, RGG's gonna put me through an entire urban spook torture ritual for daring to play the game I paid them to play! Pretty much your only way to safely deal with Daigo's second heat stage is to bait out parries. The blow is softened by the fact that you have 2 extremely high damage QTEs in the latter half of the fight, but this much super armor is still a buzzkill. 7 out of 10. Daigo isn't all that hard, and any difficulty brought by the knockdown immunity and super armor is artificial at best. He has some of the freest parry openings in the game with his 2 long-range attacks. and you can Tiger Drop them too under the right circumstances. It's also always possible to just kill him with a couple of Kiryu's obscenely strong heat actions. 6 out of 10. Daigo being such a storied character in this series adds some bonus points here. That intro is the definition of aura farming, and Four Face is such an epic track. The QTEs are a bit silly though, especially the one that definitely needed 15 different camera angles with multiple panning shots. You can do some neat combos in the beginning, but it becomes very hard to after he goes into his heat mode due to Kiryu's nerfs. Daigo having actual Tiger Drop openings in a game where Tiger Drop is not invincible helps out though. It's not at the top of the aura list for sure, but it is pretty good. 7 out of 10. 35 out of 50 overall. Sorry guys, no intro, the song is copyrighted. While I have played the Kuruhyo games, I kinda suck at them, so for both games I had to reach out to some friends for insight on the matter. Get mad at Ryujin Shadow if any of this is inaccurate. Truth be told, even with the insight given by my pal Ryujin, I still kinda have no idea how these games work. According to him, this is a 7.5 because it removed knee stunning after death blow counters on heat rush attacks, and various other things, I guess. I didn't really want to have decimals in this ranking, but Ryujin said he should get a 7.5, so who am I to question him? 7.5 out of 10. One thing I do know is that this category doesn't make sense for either of these games. Both games have like 20 different styles for you to choose from, and Kuruhyo 2 even lets you make your own style, meaning that I can't really rank the games in this category. Not applicable out of 10. Apparently, Ryo has a bad arena because it's too big, which is bad for combos or something. And he's also really evasive and hard to combo because he can perfect dodge high attacks. He said give him a 6. I don't know. Apparently, Ryo gets a difficulty rating of 6. Finally, a category I can actually speak on. You already know how much aura this fight has. I just wanted to feel included. According to Ryujin, the fact that this guy's fight is a tiny bit underwhelming hurts it a little bit, but the simple fact that it has Born to Be Wild blaring over it is enough for a 9. 28.5 out of 40, or 35.625, we'll round that up to a 36 out of 50.
This dude did a 10-hit combo! This dude's doing strengths!
I don't know what to do for these intros anymore, dude. Can we just skip to the part where I give him a 4 out of 10 in aura for some arbitrary bullshit? For the final time, as stated, Yakuza 4 gets an 8. Akiyama feels great to use and has a ton of options in any given situation. He is both the easiest and most broken character in the game due to his unmatched speed, allowing him to create combos very quickly and maintain them for basically forever. The engine changes from Yakuza 3 were obviously made for Akiyama, as he would have been even more broken than he already was if not for the nerfs. Almost every move in his kit has at least some utility, making him a very versatile fighter. He's an extremely fun character to play as who takes advantage of what the engine provides perfectly. He's missing a few of the bells and whistles of Yakuza 3 Kiryu, particularly in his underwhelming reversals and relatively few heat actions, but what he's got is great. 9 out of 10. Much like how I find Yakuza 4's gameplay to be a diet version of Yakuza 3's, I consider Arai to be a diet version of Mine. Both are very fast, have great pseudo-corners, and have a heat cycling gimmick, but the problems arise in how these similarities translate to a different player character and a different version of the engine. Arai's got nothing on Akiyama's speed. Kiryu's knockdown combos are much easier to drop than Akiyama's, and this being Yakuza 4 also means that those combos do crazy damage. Arai's heat modes also only make him more aggressive, and in the case of his red heat mode, give him knockdown immunity. It's very easy to bypass these heat modes by keeping him in a knockdown combo, but if you don't want to do that, his blue mode doesn't do much, but his red mode is a nice change of pace as it encourages bad combos. Arai is not a bad boss though. Most of the problems come from how broken Akiyama is. 8 out of 10. While Yakuza has its fair share of intentionally easy final bosses, Arai is one of the few unintentionally easy ones, and probably the worst offender at that. It's just because of how good Yakuza 4 Akiyama is. He'd be a decent challenge for any other character, but Akiyama just runs circles around him. I'd argue that he's among the easiest final bosses to no damage in the whole series. I think an easy boss is better than an unreasonably hard one, so we won't be getting a bottom tier score, but I'll still be taking quite a few points off. 4 out of 10. Assuming the rival is actually good, rival fights are pretty much guaranteed to be awesome. Arai is a bit all over the place as a character, but the presentation of this fight is cool as hell. The music, intro, and QTEs are all some of the best in the game, but I think the fact that this guy is so easy and exploitable hurts his aura a bit. It's great otherwise, but that drags him down. 7 out of 10. 36 out of 50 overall. Yakuza 6 is a surprisingly deep game that deserves a lot more credit than it gets. It may not be as flashy as some of the other games in the series, but it provides a lot for the player to work with. Between back combos, stun combos, and wall stuns, there's plenty to mess around with even if the one-style nature of this game leaves you with a bit less variety overall. Tackling most Yakuza 6 fights head-on can punish you hard, and most of the tech is a bit esoteric in how it functions, but I still think it's quite worth learning. 8 out of 10. Being the first iteration of this modern version of the DoD moveset, there are a few rough areas here and there, but this is still a really nice feeling style to use. Almost everything being quickstep cancelable is nice, even if quicksteps themselves are a little odd feeling. Kiryu's parry is very nice and crucial for back combos. Your actual options within combos are a bit limited, sadly, but it doesn't hurt all too much considering how well the game flows. Extreme Heat, while not perfect, is also a more realized version of Dragon Spirit from Yakuza 5 that works great for heat actions. 8 out of 10. Iwami is unfortunately a little mediocre. Before he enters Heat Mode, he's a perfectly serviceable final boss with a reasonably difficult moveset to go up against. After he enters Heat Mode, which happens fairly early in the fight, he gains retaliation attacks that not only make him more annoying, but also make him immune to your main combo type. This Heat Mode forces you to route the fight in a very specific way, which allows you to land a stun combo as soon as possible, which is locked behind the boss going under half health and forces you to never do a single wall stun. If it was not for Iwami's counterattacks, this fight would be much better, but you unfortunately have to deal with those restrictions. It's far from the worst thing in the world, at least. There's still fun to be had here, and it's not like you can't do cool stuff, you're just restricted as to when you can do it. 6 out of 10. Iwami is far from the most difficult final boss out there. Even if his retaliation attacks can be annoying, they're not exactly difficult to deal with. Like Dragon Shibusawa, he does have a really fast grab that punishes you for trying to land parries, which is kind of annoying too, but I find this one to not be as bad, especially with Yakuza 6's better quicksteps. Iwami's health is also on the lower side, especially if you have your attack upgraded a decent amount. This fight still keeps you on your toes and isn't stupidly easy either. 7 out of 10. For a character as auraless as Tsuneo Iwami, this fight sure has a lot of it. The intro is easily one of the best ones in the series. The Way of Life is maybe not as insane and iconic as some of the final boss offerings, but it's still a great track to end the game on. And while it only has one QTE, it is a decent one. The coolness of this fight comes in how much better Kiryu is than Iwami, so completely shitting on him actually leans into what the fight tries to do. Nothing screams, he is nothing to me, like not taking a single hit and running circles around your enemy. 8 out of 10. 37 out of 50 overall.
Do you ever read The Great Gatsby? A story? Do you understand stories and characters? Skippy Toilet has that.
I have exactly 99.9 hours in Yakuza Kiwami, and I have decided that I will never ever let it cross the 100-hour mark out of spite for this game that I don't like playing very much. So I'm gonna be stealing footage from other people again. Kiwami 1 is just better 0. Wallbounding kinda doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, because every boss under the sun has knockdown immunity, but back combos are actually back to a Yakuza 3 and 4 level of consistency now. That's kind of all you have to work with this time around, but I'll be damned if it doesn't work. 9 out of 10. This is easily Kiryu's strongest iteration in the whole series. Dragon Style is actually usable in this game unlike Zero, and while Change Up is kind of a side grade at best to Zero's Quick Change clothes, it still gets the job done when it comes to allowing multi-style combos and also raises the skill ceiling, which may or may not be a positive depending on your perspective. But this game's most impactful mechanic is easily Time for Godspeed, which cranks the speed of your attacks up to 11 and allows you to cancel basically everything. Time for Godspeed and all of the hyper-specific tech that it both requires and enables the use of makes Kiwami 1 easily the most technically demanding game in the series to play at the highest level. Other than that, this is kinda just Zero, but really fast, and you can also use much more of your kit. I'm docking a point for accessibility, but that still sounds like a 9 to me. Kiwami Nishiki is maybe the most whatever final boss in the franchise. His moveset is a hodgepodge of his moves from Zero and Joji Kazama. The most beautiful man I've seen in my life. The most interesting thing I can say about him is that he has the iconic Kiwami heal and by far the strongest in the game. You can choose how long you want the fight to be by either letting him heal or instantly shutting it down. I love modular boss difficulty, but that's really not going to help you that much in the game where every boss has a cancelable healing mode, and especially when compared to the other final bosses that have much more going on. The Nishiki fight is just a match versus a kind of strong guy, and that's it. Kind of embarrassing how both of his other fights completely mechanic mog this one. Nishiki's not really doing anything wrong, but he's not doing much right either. 7 out of 10. The difficulty of no damaging Nishiki comes entirely from your own execution. Kiwami is a hard game to play optimally. Nishiki is not a very hard boss. Such a simple fight could cut it as the final boss back in OG1, but when Kiryu can do shit like this, you're gonna need a bit more than just a standard moveset to go against it. That's not entirely a bad thing though. Nishiki serving as more of a tech showcase than anything is quite cool, and the difficulty that comes from performing some of Kiwami's more advanced combos is enough as is, but I can still lament the lack of a real challenge here. 7 out of 10. This fight's aura is hard carried by how awesome high-level Kiwami gameplay looks. Otherwise, this fight has not much going for it. You have a decent intro, reused QTEs, and a remix of the original theme that's kinda just okay in my opinion. If I had a nickel for every time a Yakuza boss theme had a really great bells intro and then got kinda mid after that, I'd have 2 nickels. How much stronger you are than Nishiki hurts the fight in the sense that it makes him look weak, but helps in the sense that, damn, those Kiwami combos sure are cool. 7 out of 10. 39 out of 50 overall.
Who hired this crew? This is undoubtedly the seediest bunch of cutthroats, villains, and scoundrels I have ever seen, so who hired them?
I still don't know how these games work, but my buddy Ryujin said that this game gets a 9, and I'm gonna believe him because he's kinda good at it. 9 out of 10. This category still doesn't make sense for these games. Not applicable out of 10. Considering that both Kuruhyo final bosses occur on the Millennium Tower, the same bad arena complaint applies here, but Shenjo also has some somewhat frustrating AI and a few unreactable run killers. I still didn't really want to do decibels, but Ryujin said it's an 8.5, so it's an 8.5. He also said give him an 8 in difficulty without much elaboration, and I don't want to bother him anymore with this stupid video and ranking system, so an 8 it is. However, I will be making the executive decision to veto Shinjo's aura score. Ryujin said he deserves a 4, which is just not true. Muppet on its own is better than the first 8 entries of the list. Yes, he's kind of a nothing character, but that's the point. And once again, this fight has Muppet on it. 7 out of 10. 32.5 out of 40 or 40.625, we'll round that to a 41 out of 50.
Now you done it. You won't like Doc when he's angry.
I know I'm supposed to be the lyricism without tears glazer guy, but The Duel is genuinely one of the best pieces of music I've ever heard. The only reason I didn't put it here on that music tier list I flashed for 5 seconds earlier is because that take would be about as hot as my apartment building after my entire complex gets set on fire by a legion of 4 faith elitists. Okay, time to actually rank him. I mean, it's Lost Judgment. It has literally everything. The best version of juggling in the series, actually interesting stun combos but better, and a whole ton of other little things. If I don't give this a 10, people will come to my house and make me feel unsafe. 10 out of 10. Kaito is a bit more limited than Yagami. Bruiser's style is solid, but lacking some of the extra stuff that makes Yagami's styles work so well. And Tank is just mediocre with a handful of niche uses. Kaito also cannot take advantage of ground combos in the way that Yagami can. He can still do stun combos, but they're very slow to set up. Kaito relies on juggling a lot more than Yagami does, but needs rejuggles in order to do a lot of his really crazy stuff. That unfortunately only works on bosses with a roll getup. Kaito is far from bad, but he's definitely missing a lot that you would want in this engine. He kind of feels like if you threw Judgment Yagami into Lost Judgment. 7 out of 10. Shirakawa thankfully has a lot of things you would want out of a Kaito final boss. He does have a roll getup, making rejuggles possible. He has very consistent attack timings, allowing for very consistent repels, and he doesn't have any of the bullshit that Kyoya throws at you. He even has a free bomb punch opening, which you can't normally use because it doesn't make Kaito invincible. He's also a rather tanky boss, having more health than both Kuwana and Kuroiwa at 10 total health bars. This is a really good base for a boss, but unfortunately he both reuses the Rush Shibusawa moveset and will randomly decide to stop being juggled whenever he feels like it. For lack of creativity and function, 7 out of 10. Shirakawa's difficulty all depends on whether or not you can avoid the juggle glitch for a sufficient amount of time. Assuming everything goes well, he's a fair challenge, if a bit long, and made more difficult by Kaito's limitations. If you get unlucky, just give up. I don't know why this glitch affected me so much when I was no-damaging him, and it would be a lot higher if not for that. 7 out of 10. The aura of this fight is off the charts. Who needs a dynamic intro when you have this much energy emanating from your fight? The last second rug pull being that the Doctor is the final boss and also has the best song in the game. You can fight me about that. Is just crazy. I know that Shirakawa is problematic medias or whatever, but he's just so cool. Having a modern day duel against a guy who can replenish his entire health bar with some stretches and a breathing exercise is the best idea that RGG has ever had. No wonder the next two games we got were Like a Wizard Ishin and The Man Who Erased His Juggles. 10 out of 10. 41 out of 50 overall.
I'm with SpongeBob, racing down the Autobahn while I'm in the backseat trying to fuck Megatron.
I don't even have an excuse this time. I just don't want to make an intro for Targa. I've only played like half of this game, so I turned to my gaming buddies once more for a more informed opinion. If anything I say is wrong, go get mad at I'm on the edge of my seat. Despite being a spin-off based on a completely different IP, Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise has a surprisingly great combat system. It takes the good parts of how mainline back combos work and adds its own style of juggling with completely unique mechanics compared to the mainline games. If you know what you're doing, you can completely shut enemies down with how crazy the system allows you to go. This game genuinely mogs the majority of the mainline ones, and I'd be willing to give it a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for the god-awful leveling system. 9 out of 10. Kenshiro's moveset may very well be the most well-rounded one to ever come out of this series. He's extremely fast, can quick-step cancel nearly everything, he's got gut stunts, he's got launchers, he's got relaunchers, he's got heat actions out the ass, he's got an extreme heat equivalent, and he can shoot lasers. What more could you want out of this man? Well, a port to something other than a 13-year-old console would be nice. Still, 10 out of 10. Targa is an example of a gun boss done really well. He is very fast and evasive, but for the most part has good telegraphs on his attacks, which is kind of a rarity for a gun boss. His QTE segment kinda has the Yakuza 5 Majima problem of taking out a huge portion of his health for you, thus making for a pretty short fight overall, but simply being a good fight and a good combat system is enough for you to get a pretty high score. 8 out of 10. Considering that you are kind of extremely broken in this game, it is more than possible to just kill this guy if you're good enough. But he's gonna make you work to get there. I'm on the edge of my seat, told me to give him a 6 or a 7, which is a niche but clever reference to Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. So I guess we're going with the latter. Targa is kinda just a guy, but they gas him up so hard that he's gonna get a pretty good aura score by default. The theme is pretty good, and the crazy long QTE sequence in the middle of the fight is unbelievably raw. In Mr. of My Seat's own words,
his placement there is strange. Stranger than heaven. A basic goon being a final boss is bizarre. But I like him more now, because Pirate Yakuza found a way to do the same thing, but worse!
8 out of 10. 42 out of 50 overall.
He was a serial killer who bragged about killing people, and he professed and confessed to be a demon.
Judgment is like a much better thought out version of Kiwami 2. Stun combos are still the main event this time around, but not only are there more ways to activate them, but they're much more involved. And even if juggles aren't that impactful in this game, they do exist and give you something else to do. 8 out of 10. While Tiger is generally seen as the superior style in terms of general gameplay, both of Yagami's styles complement each other very well when it comes to combos. Tiger is generally what you use to start the combos and has some niche extenders, while Crane has the majority of useful moves within stun combos. There are plenty of things to do here, unlike Kiwami 2. 8 out of 10. Kuroiwa is a very well-designed boss. A nice mirror match for Yagami, at least until they gave him a mirror-er match 3 years later. I've said it before, but if these kinds of fights are designed well, they're almost guaranteed to be a hit. Kuroiwa's moveset is decently fast and challenging, with one little hiccup being his get-up attack. It's so predictable that it creates a free Tiger Drop opening that makes him super easy to loop. Still a great boss though. 9 out of 10. I've talked about modularity with all of these bosses, but Kuroiwa might be the most modular of them all. Judgment already allows you to choose how many attack upgrades you get. You can make the fight extremely easy by getting all 3, or make it much more difficult by not getting any. The greatest strength of this fight is in how it's kind of 2 fights in one. After beating Kuroiwa the first time, he'll come back after a short cutscene with a full refill. The great thing about this is that you can choose to do both phases together or separate. Doing both phases back to back with no attack upgrades may be one of the hardest endurance tests in the series. But if that's too much for you, nothing's stopping you from doing them separately. This fight is already at a good difficulty by default, but the ability to choose how hard you want it to be only makes it better. 10 out of 10. There is so much aura on display here. Kuroiwa as a character is hyped up for literally the entire game. This guy has a sick intro, one of the best action sequences in the series, and a banger theme. Alright guys, so we got the final boss themes for the judgments, yeah? I think it's missing the bongos. This dude literally gets thrown out of a window, climbs back up, shoots himself up with adrenaline, and that's how he starts phase 2. Aura levels are literally off the charts with this one. His silly little get-up attack is a bit of a stain though, and while Judgment is cool, it's not quite enough to reach a 10. 9 out of 10. 44 out of 50 overall.
So what do you do for a living?
I capture people.
Oh, you kidnap people for a living? You're a freak.
俺はやる。今まで何人殺してきたと思ってんだ。いや、あんたがそこまでのクズなら、俺らはこんなとこまで来ちゃいない。あんたを助けに来たりしなかった。誰も手出さないでくれ。俺にはよ、太郎。桑名の言いたいことも分かっちまう。お前ら二人、どっちが正しいか答えなんてあんのか。
Once again, this is Lost Judgment, 10 out of 10. Yagami in Lost Judgment is a true masterclass of action game design. He's got 4 styles total, like Ishin, Zero, and Kiwami, but the synergy between all of them is significantly better. It would be too much to get into why it works so well in this video, but that's why I already made a video doing just that. Like the previous one, if I do not give a 10 in this category, I should expect a surprise in my mailbox. 10 out of 10. Kuwana is a really good boss. He's another mirror match kind of situation, and a very close mirror at that. Pretty much all of his moves are riffs on something that Yagami has. This would be another 10, but he does have some annoying things like his RNG get-up attack and kind of weird counters. But being this well designed of a rival fight is still quite the accomplishment. 9 out of 10. Kuwana's baseline difficulty is harder than Kuroiwa. This is one of those fights where most of your losses are going to come from dropping your combos rather than getting hit, which is always a good sign. You do have some degree of customizability with your attack upgrades and whatnot, though Kuwana does not have the same separate phases that Kuroiwa has. That said, Lost Judgment as a whole, but especially this fight, can be brutally difficult just based on sheer execution. Which can be a good thing, but my video, my rules, I'm giving it an 8. Kuwana is a cool character, and the rivalry he has with Yagami is one of the greatest character dynamics in the entire series. Combined with the transcendent masterpiece that is Unwavering Belief, this fight has some of the strongest pathos and, dare I say, some of the craziest aura in the entire series. And to wrap everything up with a nice little bow, RGG gave us the perfect backdrop for this legendary encounter. Nagoshi himself mandated that such a masterclass of storytelling could only occur in the Costco loading bay. Kuwana is a great character, and Lost Judgment is a cool game, but just for that, you're getting knocked down to an 8. 45 out of 50 overall.
The Dutchman's treasure! Wow!
And finally, we reach the number 1 spot. I'd try to be all mysterious like, oh, who's it gonna be? But A, you're watching Curve Nasty Jr. on YouTube.com, and B, you've already seen him on this list twice. Yakuza 3 is amazing. Say what you want about the blocking and the bugs in the remaster, but this game feels great to play. Lots of possible openings, technical and dynamic combos, and the first game to not feel a bit short on heat actions. Doesn't quite reach the heights of some of the other games, but still excellent. 9 out of 10. Yakuza 3 retains much of the speed from Yakuza 2, while being more well-rounded and versatile. Combos aren't so one-dimensional anymore and are much easier to access even on bosses with knockdown immunity. There's lots of tech and interactions to memorize. The only major drawback is the reliance on the calming towel for the really crazy stuff due to the lack of quick-step cancel in heat mode, as well as the Komaki parry being such a universally applicable tool. But this game just feels so good to play anyway. 9 out of 10. Maybe the greatest boss fight in the series? There is so much to learn for each phase. Normal is fast but has solid openings, Orange has knockdown immunity but has exploitable aspects such as his poor defense and easily parryable punch flurry. Red can either be stalled out, which is good to shake up the gameplay while not lasting too long, or you do have some options with parry and bounding throws. Purple is the same as normal, but with healing, which can be countered. Mine's arena also contains multiple walls and pseudo-corners for all of your comboing needs. You will never be bored fighting this guy. 10 out of 10. Mine doesn't have much bullshit either. A few attacks in his orange phase can be a bit too fast and hard to avoid, and his red phase can be a bit annoying, especially if you don't know the counterplay, but it's very manageable. Those small issues combined with Yakuza 3's notoriously low damage hurt it a little bit, but it's still a very fair challenge. 9 out of 10. Hype as fuck. Mine is such a cool fighter. The QTE is rad. Fly is such an awesome theme. Everything about this fight down to the first true dynamic intro is so cool. Mine is among the toughest opponents that Kiryu has ever faced, and you can feel that power oozing out of every facet of this fight. A good no damage of this fight is super fast paced, which only leans into the insane aura this fight already has. 10 out of 10, 47 out of 50 overall. I'm sure this might be a bit of a controversial placement, especially for those who haven't seen the light of Yakuza 3 yet, But if it bothers you that much, go make your own ranking. Go in the comments and yell about how mad you are at me that I assigned a number you didn't like to a fictional character. I'm just glad to be done with this stupid ranking. I need to go make an actually good video now.